from 10 till 4 p.m.
Fanfare introduces two of the foremost exponents of the art of puppetry in England. In the past, they'd received such a warm reception when performing at the Theatre Royal that they found themselves attracted to the idea of settling in Norwich.
We'll have the gardens blown it, and of ourselves we take most care.
Husband and wife team Ray and Joan Da Silva have been working together for more than 20 years, developing their skills not only in the intricate art of manipulating marionettes, but in every aspect of puppet theatre. Now they're settling into a new home.
This is a magnificent addition to Norwich's, if I may say so, theatrical stock. And so, on behalf of the City Council, and if I may say so, on behalf of the Theatre Trust, because we did our look at it as well, we wish the Puppet Theatre, the Norwich Puppet Theatre, every possible success for the future and full houses. I have the greatest pleasure in declaring it open.
Tonight's full house is a far cry from some that this building has seen. For the redundant Church of St. James had been a night shelter for homeless men. Then, 3 years ago, it was chosen as a possible base for the Da Silva Puppet Company, if it could be turned into a theatre. The idea appealed to Tony Eade, a past chairman of the Norwich Society, who loved Old Norwich and its churches. His dream was to turn St. James into a centre for puppetry, and he hoped that one day Norwich might attract as much interest as Salzburg or Prague. The Historic Churches Trust gave their consent, but to turn an old church into a new theatre is a pretty daunting task. The job of designing the conversion was taken on by Peter Codling, known for his sympathetic and imaginative treatment of such schemes, and by his associate David Maris.
Yes, I would accept that.
Under Tony Eade, a feasibility exercise to test the support was staged in the church, and its success signalled the go-ahead for the project. December 1978, Tony and his volunteers from the supporters group started clearing out the church so that work could commence. The Norwich Theatre Trust was established and was to be responsible for leasing St. James's from the Historic Churches Trust and for carrying out the conversion. Financial support totalling £11,000, more than half of which had come from the Norfolk County Council and the rest from local firms, together with help in kind and covenanted donations, was sufficient to start converting the church into a puppet theatre. Work began in January 1979. The Manpower Services Commission undertook a major role as one of their project-based work experience schemes, whereby community projects are helped by a task force of young people who, at the same time, are getting valuable work experience. As work proceeded, details of the history of the church were gathered by the Norwich Survey. And while excavating for drains and wall footings, a special trench across the width of the church was provided to enable rod puppets to be operated from below. A section of an early wall painting was discovered and carefully revealed by staff of the Castle Museum, using electronic vibrators to gently ease the plaster away from the painting.
We now know that we're looking for a figure of the order of £70,000, and it's now up to us to come up with some firm ideas as to how we're going to raise it. A lot of ideas have already been put forward, but I'd like to hear what the ideas are tonight.
Well, I'd like to mention the idea that was briefly discussed before, and that was the connection with the EEC and the position of Norwich in relation to the continent.
While conversion work was underway, the steering committee, as the feasibility committee had now become, were thinking of new and exciting ways to keep financial support flowing in, whilst the De Silva Puppet Touring Company were on the road, increasing the interest and delight in puppetry.
Sponsoring seats or other things in the building.
Yes, and with their names on the back and everything.
The designs of the architects Peter Codling and David Maris were for a theatre which in hard commercial terms would cost between £60,000 and £80,000. But the committee were not expecting it to be done in hard commercial terms. They were asking for gifts which would substantially reduce costs. A door, a staircase, breeze blocks, cement. Any contributions would be gratefully received.
The rake of the seating, obviously the higher it goes, the more storage you're going to get underneath. But you start to affect the sight line from the highest position in the auditorium. Right. That's the sight line issue. Right.
As the detail of the auditorium is worked out, close liaison between the creative director, architect and administrators is vital, and their particular requirements may have to end in compromise.
The lowest we can possibly...
What happens if you...
Sorry, no, does this affect in any sense the number of seats you will actually get, and therefore the number of... the amount of money you can take?
Yes, on that, we're governed by the technical requirements of each of these seat widths, that they are down to the absolute minimum of 750 millimetres.
So that's what we're working on.
That's what we're working on, to get the 200 people in, which is the important thing.
Go and say that over. Thank you.
This would mean that seats at the back of the theatre would be some 15 feet above the existing floor level. The committee's aim was to create a unique, purpose-designed puppet theatre of a standard to compete with anything in Europe. They said, "We want the best, somewhere in which magic can happen." As work continued, a rude staircase that had been walled in for centuries was discovered. This made a good story for freelance journalist and steering committee member Anne Farrand, and provided valuable publicity for the project. Once discovered, the architects decided to incorporate the staircase into their designs for use by the puppeteers. Perhaps controlling a marionette from above is the most difficult aspect of the puppeteer's skill. With a new high bridge, future productions would now be able to feature life-sized figures. But for the moment, the most pressing need was for temporary office accommodation. The small room above the church porch could serve the purpose.
Could I just ask at this stage how much of this particular part of the operation could be done by unskilled labour so that we can make the best use of the Manpower Services Commission scheme?
Well, I think these box beams have been designed so that under supervision the boys could make them. They're quite simple.
How do they work?
Well, in fact, they're small pieces of wood at the top and the bottom, and they're linked by a ply plate on either side, making a beam that can span right across the auditorium.
Under supervision, this could in fact be done by untrained...
Yes.
With time.
So, this project, financed by grants, gifts and voluntary fundraising, while depending on the work done by unemployed school leavers, was giving them in return the satisfaction of considerable achievement. Of the 30 boys who have worked on the scheme so far, more than half are now in full-time employment. Access to the temporary office was far from ideal, but at least vital work could go on. And with 2 touring companies travelling to schools up and down the country, there was always plenty to do. An important part of any theatre is the seating. 160 old cinema seats were refurbished, and the work was carried out by a small group of young handicapped people under the sympathetic, watchful eye of a trained upholsterer.
Another seat done.
Ray, this is a splendid document. You put a lot of work into it, obviously. Arthur, you've helped a bit on it too. Now,
But how would the theatre operate in the long term?
Can I just explain that we have more than one team? We can be touring concurrently with playing in the theatre. So the touring operation is integral to the theatre operation in that it helps to pay for the running of the theatre. Our productions, a production, say, costs about £14,000 to produce. We're never ever going to get that back from the Norwich Puppet Theatre, from that building. But having produced it for Norwich, we then take it out on tour around the country. That's how that works. So the touring aspect has to be considered, and we have to have facilities within our bays to produce those shows in the first place and also to rehearse them.
Yes.
So that's why I'm basing on this assumption. So those are the ground things.
To comply with public performance regulations, emergency exits had to be provided. As Tony Eade said, under the supervision of skilled craftsmen, a succession of young people who would otherwise have been kicking their heels in the frustrations of unemployment were gradually constructing the auditorium, foyer and staircase within the shell of the church. Although working towards an unspecified date, the opening production was likely to be the De Silva Puppet Company's version of A Christmas Carol, and so the production must be kept up to scratch.
Push off! Come along, children. I've forgotten that Mr. Scrooge is now here for music.
Greetings, Mr. Scrooge, sir. Merry Christmas.
Can we hold it there, Joe? Can we hold it there just a minute? Let me turn off the tape.
Get rid of your wretched son.
What I'd really like to do is to keep these two, this collection and Tiny Tim, as a complete family unit. If we were to come in that way, and you stand a little bit further forward, not too far, but stand a little bit further forward, I can come round the back, and then they'll be all together. Shall we just try it? I'll take the tape back.
Peter, the thing that's going to concern you is going to be the cost on this element. This is the gantry that we're proposing here. And it's supporting a thing like you have in a steel yard. In fact, the crane will run to and fro, and the bridge will be able to go up and down. And this means that the marionettes can be operated with any touring company using any string length.
I'm thinking about the overall cost in relation to the project. I mean, can we open the theatre before we actually have this installation?
I think on that, Peter, that it's essential that the main framework, support framework, goes in at this stage. Because we're taking the ties out of this part of the building, we have to support the existing trusses with metal ties, and they are related to this bridge.
And so a local firm of specialist steel erectors was commissioned to build and install the fixed framework.
Now, he's got to get up and tumble and land on here. Now, how are you going to do it?
You have to get up very slowly because he's just trying to find his feet, and then he gradually gets used to them.
Yeah,
he has to sway about a bit because he's...
Meanwhile, the production of Pinocchio was being discussed with producer Jan Kendall.
He takes one step forward with his right foot.
Right.
Good. He brings his left foot forward, but as he does it, he trips. So
right, okay.
Support in kind was still being given. A neighbouring firm's carpenter built the counters for the coffee bar and shop.
If we're going to talk about the logo, we looked at all those designs, and I think Ray said he was going to ask Tim Bartlett to look at a modification with a marotte on it, which Stephen Lee had sorted out.
That's right, yes.
And I wondered if you've got that.
Yes, this is great. Steve designed this thing here. Have you all seen this?
No,
Well, it's that way up.
Very nice. Yeah.
A marotte, which is a French type of puppet. It's a rod puppet. And this represents a hand holding it. And if you turn it around sideways, it does look like church windows. See, so we've got the idea of that. And the silver crown has been turned completely upside down. Right. Now, we gave that to Tim Bartlett, and Tim has incorporated that into the top of a letter heading. You see. So the head is the O of Norwich, and we've decided not to put a face in that. Everybody can imagine their own face that they put into it.
Mr. Fox, are you there?
With construction work still going on, Pinocchio went into rehearsals with a new team of puppeteers.
Mr. Cat? Mr. Fox, Mr. Cat, hurrah! Oh, turnovers! Oh, dear! There!
Okay, can we stop it there, please?
Yeah.
Thing about that, Danny, is that you, with the cat, you're too far over this way.
Meticulous attention to detail is essential if a high standard of production is to be maintained.
And you've got to be right over here so that you, Steve, have got a good throw. And that was a
Otherwise they disappeared off the
That was a bit messy that time as well. It's not usually like that, but it's really got to fly nicely. And also, Danny, you've got to remember that you still can't see a thing.
With that particular movement sorted out, the rehearsal goes on. Gradually, the foyer area nears completion. The windows have been reglazed, another gift in kind, and the generous donors have incorporated the theatre logo. Now the architects had an unusual concept for phase 2 of the project.
The essence of it is that it's sunk into the churchyard, so that the floor level is on the same level as the foyer spaces of the theatre, and it has the least possible facing material around the outside edge. The outside wall would only stand a metre or so high.
It really is superb. I think you've done a fantastic job, because you see, you've got 2 staircases, haven't you? Yes, the people can come up to this top area where we will have an exhibition. They will be able to handle puppets there. They will be able to look down through these internal windows so that they can see puppets being made. We get no end of people ring us up, even now, asking, say, can we come and see the puppets being made?
I think we were about a third short on the required foyer space, so what this will do is to release the additional space.
By a stroke of good fortune, the youth employment scheme, which had been extended several times already, was continued for another month. And in July, this labour was employed on the first stages of construction for the octagon. The site was excavated, concrete for the foundation was poured, and yet another group of youngsters erected the breeze block walls up to eaves height. And all this an unexpected bonus. Now the administrative office was complete.
Felicity, I've been through these 80 applications, and there's 2 I've got them in 2 piles.
The opening date for the theatre was finally fixed for December the 1st, 1980, and 2 productions were planned. Humbug would run until Christmas, followed by Pinocchio. With just a few weeks to go, the remaining jobs in the foyer and porch were nearing completion, along with the bench seats for the front rows of the auditorium. The end of this imaginative scheme was in sight. Then Tony Eade, a driving force behind the project, was taken seriously ill. Sadly, he would not see his dream to create a puppet theatre in Norwich become reality. He had always appreciated the fascination of puppetry. Now, in their turn, young children from Norwich schools are enthralled as Charles Dickens' story of the miser Scrooge being haunted by the ghost of Jacob Marley unfolds before their eyes.
Ask me who I was. Who were you then?
In life, I was your partner, Jacob Marley. You don't believe in me?
Why do you walk the earth?
I didn't help my fellow men during my lifetime. I'm here to tell you that you still have a chance of escaping my fate.
Thank you, Jacob. You were always a good friend.
You will be haunted by 3 spirits.
I think I'd rather not.
Without their help, there is no hope for you.
But afterwards, inquisitive minds invariably turn to, how is it done?
Everybody. Now we're going to show you how some of the puppets are made. And you, I believe, have discovered our trade secret already. What is it?
Them two are the same.
Yes, there are. Scrooge is in both places at once, isn't he? In fact, we have several different copies of Scrooge. This is Scrooge when he's looking very miserable. There he is. And we have another Scrooge later on in the play when he's looking very happy. And we have Scrooge in his nightdress, and we have Scrooge in various states of undress.
How do you move that little boy on crutches?
The little boy, I use the crutch as a rod, do you see? And I put the crutches up under his armpit, and the way I walk it, like that, do you see? Right, that's how he walks.
All that remains is to put the last finishing touches for the opening night. The success of the Norwich Puppet Theatre scheme is there for all to see, and what was a small medieval church has been transformed into a 20th century theatre with an impressive list of celebrities as patrons. Marcel Marceau, Alan Ayckbourn, Richard Bryars, Roald Dahl, John Dankworth and Cleo Lane, Wayne Sleep, Ian Wallace and Jim Henson of The Muppet Show. Over the past 2 years, SNAP, as the supporters of the Norwich Puppet Theatre are known, have helped to raise money by organising fairs, outings and jumble sales. The membership now totals 300 and is growing daily. But the campaign to raise funds continues. There is still Stage 2, the building of the workshops and studios on the adjoining site, to be completed. But for tonight, many of the people who contributed to the success of the project have been invited to join the Lord Mayor and a number of special guests at a reception before the official opening of the theatre. In the foyer packed to capacity for this gala occasion, they were able to forget fundraising for one evening and then settle down to enjoy some of the particular magic of the show.
Welcome to the land of toys.
They're real toys. Oh, look, it's Pinocchio. Come on, Pinocchio. Come on. Come on, let's take him over to the train. Oh, whoops.
Pinocchio, first published in Italy in 1883, is one of the best-known puppet stories of all. It has a special message for children, as it's all about growing up.
Yippee! Bang, 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 bang. Quick march. Left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left.
The little boy is a cheerful, energetic rebel who always wants to have his own way, only his good intentions never seem to work out.
Come here. I can't believe it.
Oh, but we're home again.
Yes. Pinocchio, look at yourself. You are a real boy.
I am? I am a real boy. I'm a real boy. The fairy was right.
Oh, Pinocchio, I am so happy.
But after many strange and exciting adventures, all is well in the end. And in the final scene, we see puppeteers operating puppets that are themselves puppeteers.
Oh, that's good. That's good, my boy.
Norwich's long-awaited puppet theatre had finally opened. 3 years of enthusiasm, fundraising, hard work and, above all, optimism had paid off at last. Thanks to the dedicated efforts of a strong committee and supporters group, the community at large, and, of course, the members of the De Silva Puppet Company.
When you're trying to decide what saving scheme